Hi everyone, you're very welcome to Parenting Tips During a Pandemic. This is a presentation that will take us through how we can make the most of our COVID-19 induced time at home. So Sinead Taylor is a child and adolescent therapist, and she will be presenting on a myriad of topics: creating a safe and comfortable home space, study skills, mindfulness for the entire family, and how we are adjusting to this new way of life. So Sinead, I'll just let you introduce yourself there.
Hi, I'm Sinead Taylor, and I'm child and adolescent therapist. And in conjunction with Aisling, we put together this information pack for parenting.
And my name is Aisling Culreevy, and I'm the coordinator of Galway Autism Partnership. So just to let you know that this presentation has been developed in association with Galway Autism Partnership, but it is suitable for families of all types, of all shapes and sizes. The children in your family don't need to have any particular type of need to benefit from the strategies that we will be discussing in this presentation. It just so happens that incidences of anxiety are much higher in the autistic community, so that we have developed this presentation for children and families who are struggling with the change to routine and uncertainty, which I'm sure a lot of us are struggling with that right now. And just a note to say, if you find any of the strategies in this presentation useful, and if it's something that you can do, we would ask you to please consider making a donation to Galway Autism Partnership. This is a very difficult time for charities, particularly in terms of fundraising, and our services will be needed more than ever as we begin the recovery and we return to the new normal. So we thought about this presentation. If you have children of any age at home, you are going to find that they have questions and queries and curiosity around what's going on right now. Things are so different, they're going to notice that change, even very, very young children. And we thought that it's important to be able to explain what exactly is happening, what is COVID-19, in an age-appropriate way. So if you notice that your child is a little bit concerned, if they have a lot of questions around health and hand washing and things like that, it might be worth taking the time to explain what is COVID-19 in a child-friendly way. And there are resources available online to give you the language to do this. But just to give you a very brief guide, COVID-19 is a new illness that can affect your lungs and airwaves. It's caused by a virus called the novel coronavirus 19. And it's important to explain the symptoms of COVID-19 to children in a way that they'll understand. So a fever, a cough, shortness of breath, the loss of appetite or taste and sense of smell. And again, young people are going to notice that the older people in their lives that they care about are more affected than maybe other parts of the population. So grannies and granddads, neighbours, they may not be able to see them for a while because of cocooning. So explain what cocooning is to children. It's when you're in an environment in which you're protected and safe and kept apart from everyday life. And you'll notice that the language that we use is positive. Even though what we're talking about is a negative thing, it's important to keep the language positive, because we must remember the most important thing to remind children is most people who get sick will recover. So 22,698 as of writing yesterday, patients in Ireland have recovered from COVID-19, and that's about 94% of the population who've been affected. Those are really, really good statistics. So it's important to remind children and young people that even though the illness is serious, most people who get it will recover. And you can empower your children to take control over their environment and ensure that they can do all that they can to stay safe and to stay well. And particularly as we're entering this recovery phase where children are going to be spending more time in other people's houses and with friends again, it's important to be able to give them the strategies that they need to control their health and well-being. So something that you can do with the children in your home is to create a well-being plan. So remind them of the importance of washing hands and how to wash hands appropriately, coughing into our elbows, and explaining social distancing. And there's plenty of resources that we'll include links to about how you can explain these things in a child-friendly way. You can also create a safety plan, and that is discussing what might destroy our well-being. So spending time in close contact with other people, not washing our hands. These are things that might put us more at risk. So when we explain to children what the risks are, but what they can also do to avoid those risks, we're giving them the control and we're empowering them to take care of themselves. I think it's important as we begin the road to recovery and we see people's boundaries are changing constantly. Chances are that we're going to see things in the media and in the community where people are not acting with their best interests. So explain to children that sometimes when people are angry, sad, upset or scared, that they may not act with their best interests in mind, and remind children that when you think calmly, we make better informed choices. And that goes for adults too.
So how to explain to our children how we can, if we have a calm house, we'll have calmer children and we'll make better choices. So we look at a picture of the brain, and we know that if we look at the brain stem, that it's responsible for our most primitive functions and our reflexes responses to threats, which is fight or flight. So we can go into a fight or flight response. So when that happens, that's when we see other people being angry. If we remember the panic buying at the start of this pandemic, and now we're going into this overwhelm and quietness. So what we want to do is we want our frontal lobe to where we do our rational thinking. We want that to stay online and keeping calm, and that will help us make better choices. So Dr. Dan Siegel introduced what we call flipping your lid. So it's a hand model of the brain. So it shows us how our fight and flight responses work. So if you can make a fist with your thumb tucked inside your fingers, this is a model of your brain. So here's my brain stem here. So our thumb is the midbrain, which is our emotional brain. And this is where our emotions and memories are processed. And this is where fight, flight, and freeze are triggered. So our fingers is our rational brain and houses our ability to think and reason. And our fingernails is our prefrontal cortex. That's where our problem solving happens, okay? So when something triggers us, we are prone to flip our lid, which means the prefrontal cortex, which is where our fingernails, they have a very poor connection with our midbrain, and we're not able to access the logical problem-solving part of our brain. And our emotions are overriding our ability to think clearly. So what we want to do is we want to keep the calm house very calm so that we can think rationally and help our children to think rationally, because we're the co-regulators for our children, and we need to have more calm so we can become their external regulators. Okay.
Great. So yeah, having that kind of understanding how your mind works, how your brain works, and how our psychology works is very useful during this time when we're experiencing such unprecedented change and uncertainty. And we felt that it was helpful to have a very basic understanding of what's known as Maslow's Hierarchy of needs. And this is basically a model of human needs to survive. So you'll notice at the bottom of this pyramid in kind of the dark navy blue, we have physiological needs. These are things that humans need biologically to survive: food, water, warmth, and rest. And when we're at most risk, we are most preoccupied with those needs. And once those needs are met, we go up through the pyramid, and then we begin to focus on things like safety needs, so safety and security. Once that need is met, we look at belongingness and love needs, and so on up towards the pyramid until we get to self-actualization. And self-actualization would be the needs that are really about achieving one's full potential. So, you know, improving ourselves, learning constantly throughout our lifetime, practicing new skills, learning new activities and things like that. However, in the circumstances that we're experiencing at the moment during a global pandemic, we find that our primary needs are currently coming to the front of our awareness. We are more concerned than ever about our safety and security needs. Some of us are worrying about our physiological needs, if our health is at risk. So it's worth remembering that it's okay at the moment that we are not in the top tier of the pyramid, because everyone has been pushed down to being concerned about our basic safety needs. And I think it's just worth remembering and being compassionate and kind to yourself. It's okay at the moment to focus on your primary needs and that of your family. A global pandemic is not a productivity competition. It is not the time to learn new skills, work on getting a promotion, look at really redoing your entire lifestyle and all your relationships, unless you feel that is something that it's very much in your power to be able to do at the moment. And we mentioned that having that calm house with your needs met will mean calmer children, which is something that is going to help you get through the days at the moment, particularly if you're working from home and you have children. It's worth remembering some of these strategies. So how do we achieve this? It's very important to look at daily routine, because it's been identified that there are 4 key factors for a calm daily environment. One is the predictability of knowing what is going to happen, when it's going to happen. 2 is understanding that our routine will sometimes be variable, as external controls will determine. So we may decide, okay, we have a routine, we know what time we get up and we do our work and we teach our children. But we also need to be aware that as the government restrictions continue to lift and continue to change, as recommendations from the WHO and HSC change, there are external controls that we do not have influence over that we need to be able to accommodate into our daily routine. So having that degree of flexibility is important. Congruence is that sense of behaving in a way that is true to ourselves and, is kind of reflective of our beliefs and our morals. And then, of course, movement is that physical exercise that is so, so key and critical to physical and mental well-being. So if we're looking at our daily routine and we have children at home, it's not enough to just plan for ourselves. We have to collaborate with children's input and ideas and create a schedule that everyone's happy with and that they feel a part of, and that there's ownership there. It's important in your routine to include time for free play and for relaxation. Also, something that can cause a lot of conflict in homes at the moment, it's important to include time for technology and then a no-tech time as well. So a meal could be a no-tech time. And that's really important for children, teenagers and parents alike. And then also have a brief think about what parenting style is going on at home. This isn't to say, person's parenting style is entirely wrong. It's just to take the time to be conscious. What parenting style are you using at home, and how is that going to impact your children and yourself? We believe that and a lot of the research would back up that an authoritative parenting style, which is a perfect balance, it's creating a positive environment, communicating with children, but still enforcing parental rules and boundaries. And to give you a brief explanation of these parenting styles, you may be familiar with these, you may identify some of these as yourself. So the authoritarian parenting style, that's that focus on obedient punishment over discipline. So that's the family where the child is seen and not heard. The parent is saying, do what I say, and when the child says why, just do it because I said so. So that can be quite harmful for children in their outcomes throughout their lives. It can really affect a child's self-esteem and their confidence. A permissive parenting style is where a parent does not enforce rules and boundaries. The children are just kind of allowed to run riot. The parent does not step in and enforce any boundaries. Authoritative, like we said earlier, is that kind of balance between all of the parenting styles, and it's definitely the most positive for a child. It's associated with the best outcomes for a child throughout their childhood and into their adulthood. So that's about creating positive relationships. Parents still enforce rules, but they are open and not afraid to communicate with their children. And then the uninvolved parenting style, that is where a parent provides little guidance, nurturing, or attention. It's nearly akin to neglect. And again, the outcomes for children can be very, very harmful in an uninvolved parenting style. So just have a think about what parenting style you are using at home. And we always try and strive for that authoritative, where we allow for communication with children. So Sinead?
So we're going to have a quick peek at sleep hygiene. So one good thing to try and get into every day is exercise during the day. to promote good quality sleeping. So it's recommended that about 10 minutes of cardiovascular based activities like walking or cycling can really help with a good night's sleep. And I like this to establish a nighttime routine and make it even a ritual, a warm bath, a shower, reading, or a cup of herbal tea. And to have a pleasant and comfy sleeping environment, not too warm, and minimum light from devices such as TVs, consoles, and phones if possible, for a pretty good snooze or sleep. Because what's happening is, if we have screens, is that it's tricking the brain into thinking, okay, there's lots of daylight left. I can stay up for hours. I can stay on my screens. You know, hence our teens playing games well into the night. And then we have sleep patterns are reversing, which is something we don't particularly want.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we know, so that's why excess screen time can lead to issues with sleeping. As well as that, Aisling touched on it earlier about meal times, and I would even go as far as well to say to make mealtime screen-free zones, and we're going to be looking at mindful eating a little later on. And again, to try not to have any screens in the hour leading up to bedtime, as the light can interfere with sleep. If you can, and it's not always possible because a lot of people are working from home, living, you know, primarily, I know we've started to open up, but not everybody has gone back into the office or back out working yet. So avoid having screens in children's bedrooms, and to try and have them in a central part of the home so that you can supervise what's going on in the background. Mm-hmm. So as we're looking at creating that calm environment, let's consider the mood of the house and how to improve it. So even things like lowering the household temperature if it's too warm, and to relax your own pace, and to allow for slower transitions with preparation, and even to lower your voice, to keep the pace down so that it's just calmer. So, you know, that we're not going fast, and the child is trying to keep up with what's going on. And to be mindful of your own mood and tone, because children will pick up on subtle cues, change in inflection, change in tone, change in your pitch. And I suppose to be mindful that they're also going through huge changes in their lives. And I know they're starting to be allowed to meet friends, but socially distance from their friends. So it's to empathize with and validate those feelings, that validate your children's feelings, that, you know, I can see you're really upset the TV time's finished, and I'm sorry that you feel this way. And to use those feeling words and empower children to identify and communicate their feelings with you. Because when a child is feeling dysregulated, maybe they're feeling sad and it's appearing as anger. So when you give them those words to use, and to, you know, it empowers them and into how they're actually feeling. So again, creating safety in your inner world instead of seeking it in the outside world. So what makes you feel safe yourself? You know, is it just stop and take that breath? Because once you start to feel that you're not feeling safe in your inner self, you're going to start looking in the outer world to create that safety. You know, hence I know I was doing it at one point, you know, scrolling through news feeds to see what was going on, trying to create safety, whereas I needed to create it within myself. Introducing mindfulness practice into your family day, allowing you to focus on the present, being intentional and thoughtful about where you are and how you're feeling, and try to center your thoughts and be in the moment. Mindfulness is proven to increase focus and memory, resilience and compassion, and decrease that worry and stress. So we're going to practice a little square breathing. And as you can see, we're going to close your eyes. And if you just follow my voice and breathe in through your nose while counting to 4 slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold your breath inside while counting slowly to 4. Try not to clamp your mouth or nose shut, by the way. Begin to slowly exhale for 4 seconds. and repeat these steps again, maybe at least 3 times. And we always say in Goyerson Partnership, we practice in calm so that we can use in crisis. So we've put together a few other ones for children and for parents and anybody, and the links to these are at the end of this presentation. Aisling has put them in. So things like belly breathing for children, where we put one hand on our stomach and one hand on our chest and slowly breathe in from your tummy and breathe out. And things like using our 5 senses. And on waking up, take a few moments to explore what's happening around you through your senses. Allow yourself the time to name the things you see, you hear, you feel, you taste, and you smell. And to do mindful check-ins with your children throughout the day. So asking your child how they're feeling in the here and now, and again, helping them to identify their feelings if they're unsure. This is what we were saying earlier, mindful meal. So to get the family to pay attention to the smell, the taste, and the look of the food. And even to be mindful with your children through music, to focus on music that they like, what they like about it, maybe to focus on the voice or the instrument that's being used in that particular music. And again, increasing the connection between you and your child doing these activities. Thanks, Aisling. And this is by Dr. Chris Willard, and it's to stop. And we suggest that you even cut this out and just stick it on your fridge. And it just reminds us to stop what we are doing. Take a breath. Observe what's happening internally and externally, and then plan what to do next and proceed. And also think before you speak. Is what I am going to say true? Is this going to be helpful? Am I the way to say it? Is this the way I'm going to say it? Is now the time to say it? And is what I am about to say kind? So think before you speak. Body scans. This is a little exercise which gets you to focus your attention on different parts of your body, from your feet to the muscles in your face. And it's designed to help you develop a mindfulness awareness of your body sensations and to relieve tension wherever it's found. The goal here isn't to change or relax your body. Instead, it is to notice and become more aware of it. And remember to move slowly as you go through your body. And there's a link to talk you through a short body scan at the end of the presentation. Progressive muscle relaxation is something that we use in Goyerson Partnership to show children that when we're anxious, how tense our body can be without realizing it. So again, we've linked in a progressive muscle relaxation script at the end of this, and it's an exercise that reduces stress and anxiety in our body by having us slowly tense and then relaxing our muscles. So it will provide feelings of relaxation, and with practice will teach you to become more aware of what you are experiencing, where and when you're experiencing tension. So during this exercise, each muscle should be tensed, not to the point of strain, and any injuries or pain, just skip that area. And when you start to concentrate on the feelings of releasing tension in each muscle and the resulting feeling of relaxation, it will teach us how much we tense up our bodies sometimes during the day and the feelings of relaxation that follows. And again, meditation. And the goal of mindfulness meditation is simple. It's to pay attention to the present moment without judgment. And as we practice, you'll find that this gets easier. And during mindfulness meditation, we'll focus on breathing as a tool to ground yourself in the present moment. And sometimes it's normal that your mind will wander, and you'll simply bring yourself back into the moment by refocusing on your breathing again and again. And as we say, practice makes perfect. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you, Sinead. So there's lots of lovely strategies there. And as Sinead did say, practice or teach in calm to use in crisis. You are going to find that these things don't work immediately, but we do believe if you get the right fit for your child and your family, the more that you practice when they are calm, the more able that they will be able to use it when they need to. They'll be able to draw on that resource when they really need it. So again, to just focus on that calm house, calmer children. That can be difficult when you've got kids and teenagers of all different ages, opinions and personalities, all living under the one roof. And I think, as Sinead has said, we're all getting a little bit too much of one another at the moment. Human beings crave togetherness, but they also crave time on their own. We need that balance, which is missing at the moment. So what can you do as a parent to help your children? These are some things to avoid. Triangles, and the example that we use here is about children, but triangles can occur in any relationships, whether it's adult relationships, spouses, friends, adult parents. So the example here is if you have more than two siblings and they're playing a game and the older two gang up on the younger child. And this is something that tends to happen naturally when you have three or more people in a relationship. These triangles happen and they kind of victimize one person. So avoid those, look out for them and be aware of what to do when you see them to kind of dismantle them. Avoid walk-bys and talk-bys. And this is when we don't give an interaction the appropriate time and attention required to be effective. We're all guilty of this. It could be walking past your 10-year-old and saying, have you done all the schoolwork yet? And they're kind of left in the dust going, what is she talking about? Does she mean the maths or the geography or the schoolwork for the week or for 2 weeks or for just today? And then nothing gets done. So set specific and measurable and realistic goals, discuss them with your child or your spouse and have that communication, devote the appropriate time and attention that you need, because otherwise you'll find that things are not getting done. If you find that sibling conflict is an issue in your house, try the separation method. And we really like this because it's not a punishment. It doesn't make people feel bad about themselves, but it teaches children cause and effect as well as problem solving. You're not flying in and solving the problem for them. You're allowing them to practice those tools. So calmly identify the issue. I can see that you're arguing a lot over this game. And then allow for resolution between children. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to work this out between yourselves, and also present the consequence if that resolution is not reached. And if you haven't found a way to play together, you're going to have to play in separate rooms for 20 minutes. So it's not a punishment. You are just explaining to children what will happen if they don't identify the solution to the problem themselves, and you're giving them that time to work on that. Something that's very important at the moment for everyone, including our families, is self-care. And we need to create that resilience and safety within ourselves because we can't rely on safety from external sources at the moment. It's very important to develop routines to stand up, stretch, and get some fresh air. So if you're working from home, make time to get up and move away from your desk. And we're going to talk about some techniques that you can use to ensure that you stick to this for yourself. So, because sometimes it's hardest to hold ourselves accountable when there's nobody else to do it. Recognize that we should focus on what we can control. The information that we're getting from news sources or external sources is always going to be variable, and that's going to change without our input, but we can control certain things. During this time of uncertainty and increased stress, your body's going to be in survival mode, so it's going to be craving self-soothing treats such as sweets, treats, and wine. So, have boundaries with yourself, but do allow for occasional indulgence. And maintain your morning and evening routine as much as you possibly can. But we know that not every day is going to run smoothly, so prepare for that. And again, remember to focus on what you can control. We believe that it's important to limit time spent reading news and on social media. There is a lot of disinformation out there at the moment. There's a lot of false information. And we do know that information is power, but the disinformation is the abuse of that power. So be aware of that misinformation, the falsities, rumors, and opinions. Be critical in what you're reading. Be critical in the sources that you are getting your information from. Use critical thinking and look for other opposing views. And at times you're going to find the need for your own well-being to just switch off entirely. That is okay. We can also use technology to stay connected in a very positive way. So we've all been kind of enlightened to the wonders of WhatsApp and Zoom and Skype over these last few months. And they've been really a saving grace for a lot of families and a lot of friends. It's important that we are able to come to terms with uncertainty. And this isn't something that happens overnight. This is something that takes practice. Just know that you're not alone, that everyone is facing the same fears and concerns. Maybe it will be helpful for you to list the things that you can and can't control. We can't control when restrictions are lifted. We can't control when there is a vaccine. But we can focus our time and energy on the things that we can control. So your diet, and I don't mean restricting calorie intake, I mean nourishing your body during this time. Exercise, who we communicate with and who we spend our time with, what we wear, what we do during the day and in our free time. You have control over these things, so devote your time and energy to those. If you find that you're the kind of person that is a worrier and constantly goes over the same concerns or new concerns in your head, and you don't have that ability to press pause on those worries, try scheduling a time to worry. And it sounds a little bit silly at first, a little bit counterproductive, but again, it's one of those things, if you practice, you can find is really, really useful for you. So set a time, maybe 20 or 30 minutes during the day that works for you. We don't recommend that you do it before bed, but maybe after lunch, after dinner, set a time to worry. And you can write a list or make a journal entry. And a lot of people find that actually writing down their concerns and worries helps them to park them. And once you have a dedicated time to worry, that means that throughout the day, as you find concerning thoughts and anxieties creeping up, you can go, no, I'm going to devote the time and energy to that later on, or I can do that tomorrow, And a lot of people find it really beneficial to keep a gratitude journal to remind you of all the positive that is in your life. And gratitude journals don't have to be huge things. It doesn't have to be, I got a promotion, or I got engaged, or I had the most wonderful day ever. It can be, I cooked a meal from scratch. I brought my dog for a walk. The sun is shining. I slept well the night before. So gratitude can be very, very minor. And often the people who are grateful for the smaller things are generally the most contented people. And again, we talked about kind of working from home and balancing that need to connect with our family, but also to be efficient. And the Pomodoro technique is a really, really useful time management method. Children learning at home can use it, but you can also use it if you're working from home and you find it difficult to separate work and home and family. So the Pomodoro technique, it increases efficiency and assimilation of knowledge, but it also reduces the impact of internal and external interruptions on our focus and our workflow. And I have included a link to more information on the Pomodoro technique, but to explain it in the most basic terms, it means that you're deciding on a task that will be done. You're setting a timer for 25 minutes. Sometimes people use different variations on the timing intervals. You work on that task until the timer rings. And once the timer rings, you take a short break. So your short break could be a cup of tea, getting up from your desk and walking around. But it could also be having valuable time with children and young people in the home. It could be playing a card game, going outside for a quick run around the garden, something like that. And then when you've done that 4 times repeatedly, you can take a longer break, a 15 or 30 minute break. And this technique has been reliably shown to be very effective. And again, it's not something that we can start immediately and we find that it works every time. We need to practice and we need to reap the benefits of these things over time before we're able to assimilate them into our daily routine. Communication has never been more important, whether it's via Zoom or in person with the people that we're sharing our homes with. And we will find that tensions and stress are more present and they're higher at all times. So it's important to communicate effectively and healthy with others, whether it's their children, partners, our friends, our family members. So we find that when you're communicating healthily, it's important to acknowledge how a person is feeling or the difficulty that they're facing. So for the purposes of this presentation, we'll just choose maybe a teenager that's finding it difficult and they're feeling cut off and isolated from their friends at the moment. So acknowledge how they're feeling. You know, I hear what you're saying and I understand that it's a very, very difficult time. It's hard to be away from your friends at the moment. Affirm their actions in talking with you and taking positive steps. So you could say, I'm really glad that you took the time to come and talk to me today. And you could affirm positive steps. So I know that you're connecting with your friends via WhatsApp and Zoom, and that's a really healthy thing to do at the moment. And then collaborate to find helpful solutions and suggestions. So work together with the young person to find solutions that work for them. Because if we as adults, without the lived experience of young person during a pandemic, if we prescribe solutions, they're not going to be a good fit for young people. So we need to collaborate and we need to find a solution that works for all parties. It's really important that we empathize with teenagers and children and acknowledge the distress that they're caused by missing their friends and old routines. So as parents or older people, we may find that, you know, we are not craving our social relationships and friendships. Maybe we're better able to survive with limited contact with our friends and family members. But teenagers are different. They need that, so they crave that social contact. So schedule times for social media use and chatting online. And parents must adapt and adhere to the family rules too. And adult family members must adapt and adhere to those rules. We need to model a good example of healthy tech and social media usage. And there are links online to a project that recommends some really good guidelines for social media usage for young people. Not just about limited guidelines, but actually being a healthy and responsible and conscientious citizen online. We think it's important to foster an atmosphere of non-judgmental security and open discussion. And again, it goes back to that authoritative parenting style where we promote open discourse and conversation. We might not always agree on things, but we are empowered to have the conversation at home. So we're having open, non-judgmental discussion in the home. And if we do this, young people are more likely to approach a parent if they have an issue or if they see or hear something concerning online. So just imagine that your child or your teenager has come across something online that is inappropriate. It may be sexual, it may be violent, it may be gore, it may be racially charged, it could be abusive language. There is no end to the dangers and the threats that a young person can come across on a daily basis online. Do we really want that young person to feel that if they come to us, that they're going to get in trouble and thus they become silent and secretive? Or do we want them to feel empowered to come and talk to parents and have an open conversation and say, okay, I was on a site I probably shouldn't have been on and I came across something I shouldn't have seen, but it's really causing me upset and distress and I need to talk about this with the adults in my life. So if you are working from home and you have children who are continuing their learning, we know that there's only a few more weeks left of the school year, but learning is not something that stops once the school year finishes. Children are constantly learning. Remember that routine and consistency with input from the child is really valuable when we're looking at these routines for learning. Develop everyday rituals for your family. So from the time that you get up in the morning, eating breakfast together and settling down to a productive day of learning or working. It's important to schedule break and snack times throughout the day. But once we have our routine, we need to remember that we have to be flexible and open to suggestion. If something doesn't work, it can be changed. If you say that break time is at 11 and lunchtime is at 1 and there is no changing, you're going to encounter difficulties because it's probably actually the adult parent that is going to be the first person to break those rules, and then the children will begin to resent you for those things. And remember, even though online and digital learning is something that's new to us all, there's actually a lot of proven benefits for students and employees for working online. And while we're probably encountering a lot of the challenges of online working and learning, we also need to be aware of the benefits too. But it can also be very tiring. It is more tiring than in-person learning and working. And it's a good rule of thumb to reduce lesson lengths to 40 minutes max. And then think about creating a productive workspace, whether for an adult or for a child. So it's very good to avoid the young person's bedroom, the kitchen, or the living space if at all possible. We're totally aware that this isn't always possible for every family. Your workplaces can be limited, so you may have no choice but to work at the kitchen table or in the sitting room. But try and personalize your workspace. And a good way to kind of overcome that challenge is switching out bedrooms. So if children are learning in the bedrooms, have them switch with a sibling or with a parent. That transition will help to reduce academic anxiety. It means that when they're going to bed at night, they're not in the space where they do all their learning, so the anxiety is reduced. Remember to allow for individual tastes and personalization. Sometimes people work better with background music, but others can't tolerate any noise. So just because you feel it's important or it's impossible to work with the music on in the background, that doesn't mean that a child works the same way that you do. We think that it's important to always have organized, clean and tidy and individualized workplaces. So that's a good rule of thumb, to keep things organized, clean and tidy, and devote time at the beginning, at the end of every work session to maintaining a tidy workspace. And again, having a clear transition from bed to all other activities. So when a person wakes up in the morning, there's a clear transition that they're not bringing their workbooks or their laptop in and working on the bed, because that's just going to lead to difficulties with sleep hygiene. Here's some tips from Smart Education's Mary O'Dowd, and it's good for students but also for employees who are working from home. If you as a parent are working from home, develop a signal that allows children to know your office hours or when you can't be interrupted. So you might have a schedule on your door, or the symbol of having the door completely closed means that you can't be interrupted. But we are leveling the playing field, and we know that our children's needs are very important during this time. We are including in our schedule time for meaningful, genuine interaction with our children. So your schedule might say that you're in a meeting for the next hour, but at the break, you're going to come out for 10 minutes and you're going to play cards with your child, or you're going to play a game of Pokemon Go by walking around the neighborhood. Whatever works for your child. If you can have 10 minutes or more of meaningful activity and interaction with your child, the benefits are really positive for both the child and the parent. So schedule that time for breaks and chats with children so that they're not feeling neglected and not listened to or not attended to during this time. And learning does not have to be rigid, stuck on a book or on a laptop. It can be fun and different. So you can make YouTube and TikTok videos. You can learn from these same resources. There are so many games, literacy, numeracy, geography, science, you name it. There are games available out there that can make learning fun. Have fun, be silly, and allow the child to lead in learning. So particularly as we go into the summer and there's less external pressure on the child and the parent to engage in academic learning, be creative in how your child learns and allow them to lead the learning process. So we're coming to the very end of our presentation now. We'd like to all remind you to take a moment to just breathe. So let's just take a breath. And we would like to thank you all very much for taking the time and devoting your energy to listen and learn from this presentation. We hope that you find there are strategies that are useful for you. There will be links at the end of this presentation to useful resources available online. There is always so much available, but we think sometimes it's helpful to get a recommended list. I would remind you again that anxiety and uncertainty is now becoming a common part of our everyday life, but we can be empowered to overcome these and to invest in self-care and time and energy for ourselves and for our family. I'd also like to thank you for supporting Galway Autism Partnership. Again, if you have found any part of this presentation helpful, we would like you to consider making a small donation, whatever you can, whatever you think is appropriate for this presentation.
Aisling,
yeah.
Can we remind people that you and I host a parent support group every Thursday evening?
That's right, yeah. So every Thursday evening we have that parent support group. It's done via Zoom. So Sinead and I lead that group, and there's a lot of helpful tips. So we have covered so far things like sibling rivalry, sibling conflict, setting healthy boundaries, games that we can use to increase communication, meditation and mindfulness. So if people find that helpful, that's completely free to attend, and it's from 8 to 9:30 every Thursday evening, and we will be continuing that as long as the kind of restrictions are in place. But we would like to thank